All right, it looks like they've closed the doors. I don't know if that means it's full or they just didn't want to see my face out there anymore as they were standing outside. But my name's Jim Allen, and I'm the principal of the Ellen STEM Academy. We're going to be talking today about business and community partners, getting them involved in the classroom and teaching. And this is, I don't think any of us that came in as teachers that this was necessarily what we got into education for, was saying, how do I get business people into my building and talk to them? I mean, we got into it for the goal of helping kids. And so this is all about that. And we know in our climate, this is really, really important. So before we get started, raise your hand if you're from East Tennessee. Okay, a lot of East Tennessee. Good. How about West Tennessee? All right. Oh, I know you guys. We've worked together before. And then Middle Tennessee, is that what they call it in Tennessee? Is Middle Tennessee? Okay. I've been in Tennessee for 10 years, but anytime somebody says a city's name and it's not like one of the bigger ones or is not in East Tennessee, I don't remember what it is, and so I apologize. I just met somebody from Shelbyville, and all I could think of is The Simpsons because, I'm almost 40-year-old immature dad, so that's just what we do. I'm really excited to be here and to see you guys. So raise your hand if you've been to our school before or visited our school before. I know quite a few of you have. If you've gone through ILI, I think basically every year that it's happened, we've hosted people and talked to people, and we love getting to show off our place. Not only is, you'll see some pictures here, our building, which is a really cool 120-year-old train station in downtown Knoxville, but also to show off our teachers and the awesome things they're doing. So I will recommend, though, if you're ever starting a school, don't start it in a 120-year-old train station. They're really, really cool. But I bet you can imagine the maintenance that goes along with that, like just random holes in the ceiling or the floor just falling in, or asbestos in the basement and why nobody can go down there. A lot of those kind of things that have happened. So we'll talk a little bit about who we are. We're a standalone STEM magnet high school in Knoxville. So a lot of people think that we have some sort of registration process or an application to get in. There is an application. It basically is put your name in and why you want to come, which the only choice is programming. And then you are put into a lottery. And so as a school, we do not have any sort of test to get in. You don't have to have any sort of requirements. You just have to apply. And then a certain number of students, based on the percentage of Knox County school students that are from your zone, get into our freshman class. And so every year we have 160 spots for our ninth graders. And then we have 15 spots for students out of county because we are a regional high school. And so we take in about 175 kids a year. And by the time their freshman year is over, it isn't for everybody. They will take themselves out, or they have put themselves in a position credit-wise where we're like, you need to go somewhere where you're going to be doing 4x4 schedule, one of those things that allows for a student to make up credits. So again, we're not for everybody, and we're going to talk about that today because we have kind of had to embrace that as of late. But some things we're really proud of, and I don't ever not say this when we're out at places, is some of the things that we're recognized as. And so that number 8 ranked high school in Tennessee in the U.S. News and World Report, for a school that doesn't screen kids, that has kids from every socioeconomic background you can imagine, and from 9 outside counties along with Knox County, we're really, really proud of being able to have done that and to maintain that every year. And I think this year we moved up a spot to number 8. Number 1 high school in the metro area, high schools from U.S. News and World Report, and again in East Tennessee on that report. So we're really, really proud of those things. Those are something that I think we do pretty well, and that is educating kids. So who am I? And I like to start off all this because I'm going to talk to you, and I'm sure I'll say things I shouldn't, and I apologize in advance for that. Any offensive things I say, I apologize for that. Probably going to do it again if I do it once, and so I'm really sorry. But I'm the principal of the school. I was a math teacher for, I think, 12 years in a few different states and quite a few different schools. Amateur physicist because of my future astrophysicist 8-year-old. I'm a father to him. I'm a father to a 6-year-old missing teeth soccer player who father of a 2-year-old robot enthusiast. So all boys, imagine 3 boys, 8 and under, all the time. It's obviously pretty nuts all the time. So I always also talk about when I'm presenting things I'm bad at, because those are going to shine through in my talk today and to show some of that vulnerability. I am really bad at focusing on one thing at a time, and I love that Adderall exists. And so that's a really cool thing. Love medicine, love science. And I am really bad at keeping my mouth shut. Anybody who's met with me before or worked with me knows that I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't. I told my supervisors they hired me. They knew what they got when they hired, so it is what it is. So why partners and why any of that? Like I said at the beginning, this isn't something that any of us got an education for. None of us came in thinking, how do I do that? We got into the business of helping kids. But all of us also know what funding looks like, first of all. We know that we're not funded for what we need. We're funded for what they will give us. They don't know what we need. They just give us that money, and it's the bare minimum almost always. And so one of the things that we get partners for is funding. We try to raise our own money to be able to spend our own money and not have to jump through all the hoops. So that's that ugly thing right up front. Yeah, if you want to have something nice, you got to raise the money yourself. We were talking about this morning. Why we don't go through central office for some things is because it's just a pain in the butt. And so if I can get it myself, we're going to try to do it ourselves. So one of the other pieces of it is we have been around for 10 years. You'll see the logo up here. This has been our thing, our celebration of our 10 years. We had a big celebration last Saturday. It was awesome. Brought back former staff members, brought back alumni. It was just an awesome, awesome celebration of our school and our history. But as we were very innovative 10 years ago, some of the things we were holding on to weren't necessarily that. They were things that everybody else was doing, which is great. We were supposed to set the bar. We were supposed to be an example for people. And so we have to now look at what does that future look like? What does innovation look like? And how do we change? And so we set the bar and others are reaching for it. That's the idea. The world around us is changing. That's the second point. And so we must evolve. And this is all things that we've been talking about the last 3 years. So what did that evolution look like? And then innovators can't be content. We can't rest on our laurels. If we were to do that, we're just going to kind of just sit where we are. Our kids are going to, just being honest with you, we get a lot of great kids that apply. They're going to succeed in spite of us at times. What do we do to take them up to the next level? So how did we get here? How did this all start? Again, I think the last slide kind of answered some of that, but we had to start talking to the people that mattered the most. And notice who the first one is. Yeah, it was our kids. And so last summer, it started out back in June, we started bringing in student focus groups. We started to bring in students that represented all facets of our community, but then also all facets of just our school. And we started to bring them in and say, what's good? What's bad? What do you like? What do you think stinks about what we do? And we just took notes. We didn't try to talk them out of why they felt the way they did. We just started to talk about things and ask and try to answer their questions, but to take in all of their answers. Next thing we did was did the same thing with faculty. And that is a really, really hard thing to do as a principal. I will tell you that as somebody who, now it's only my third year at the school as a head principal, but I was there previously as an assistant principal. So in the 10 years that our schools existed, I've been in administration for 5 of those. Obviously pretty well vested in it and very invested in that school. And just so to hear and to ask faculty to be very honest with you is a really, really hard thing to do and to hear, because there are things you're doing that you're like, well, damn, that's terrible. Why am I doing that when we all thought it was a good idea? So that was really interesting. And so if I give you any advice in those meetings, get off campus and make your group small. That is the best thing you could possibly do. We took groups of 6 teachers to different off-campus places around our county. We worked with local business partners, as we'll get to later, and said, hey, can we have a room? Can we have a room with a view? If you had a room with a view, being downtown, we lucked out and got a couple of those. But we had a facility that we just brought them to, and we spent an entire half day. We had their classes covered. We provided food, drinks, and we just sat around and talked. We asked them a series of 6 questions, and we made it through those 6 questions. And if you've brought in teachers before, how many of you guys are administrators? Okay, so just a few. That's awesome. How many of you are central office or administrators or other? Okay, so quite a few people in that. You know that if you bring in a group of teachers into a room and ask them to be honest, and they feel comfortable being honest, 6 questions will definitely fill up 6 hours, right? They definitely did that each time, and it was probably the most valuable thing I've done in my career at this school. But we sat and asked them questions saying, hey, what do we do well? What do you want to see change? What do students need in the next 10 years? And then the next thing was parents. That is the hardest part, is to get them to volunteer at many schools to answer questions, to sit and talk about things. Well, we are lucky enough that being at a school where the parents have chose to send their kids to it, they like to volunteer even when we don't want to hear what they have to say about everything. And so we had to be more selective with this group, and we needed it to be representative, but we didn't need it to turn into somebody just complaining for 10 to 12 hours about one particular thing for their child. There's value in that, and there's value in hearing everyone, but there's not value in it for 12 hours with all of the administration, teachers sitting around listening to it. But the last one, the one we're going to focus more on today, is the community and business partners. And this is one of the harder things to initially organize. But you have to reach out to people who are going to be making decisions in your community. And so that's going to be your city mayor if you're in the city. And we have a split system in Knox County, a county mayor, possibly former county mayors or county politicians that are playing a role in the community that are still involved politically. Different organizations in the community that help out, different larger companies in the organization. You have to reach out to all of them. The worst they can say is no. But you need to show your value to them and why it's valuable for them to give that input. And then once you have them there, you'll need to listen. So again, we ask the same questions for each of these. And I would be, I would feel bad if I didn't say this right now because the person's in the room with me and he doesn't know I'm saying anything, but I worked with a principal in this room, Tim Berry from South Doyle High School, for 2 years between my stints at STEM and learned a lot about finding that value of the community and their input into that. So, Tim, thank you for that. Tim taught me quite a bit, and if anybody's heard me not keep my mouth shut, it's that man. So, what we heard from people, and these are the four main things. The four things we heard from everybody were kids need experiences and opportunities. And again, this is from all of these different stakeholders. They need to have an ownership in what they're doing and of their learning. They need to be involved in the community, and they have to have a narrow focus of what their education should be. So we looked at this, and we were like, okay, we can try to do this, this, and this. We have all these plans, but none of them can happen alone. Just the students if we focused on, just the faculty, just the families, none of that would work. We have to have others involved. So why on earth would we try to do it ourselves? Okay, try to bring in those outside people, and that's where this started. So in year one, we started to say, okay, we've got, again, a 10-year goal. So we're looking at what does 10 years from now look like? What do kids, when they graduate from the L&N STEM Academy, need in 10 years? We said, okay, how does this start? I will tell you as a principal, if you ever think about doing what I did this year and think it's going to be smart, don't do it. Our academic goal for the year, our goal as a school, was to come up with a 10-year goal. So our 1-year goal was to come up with a goal. So try to motivate your teachers in the middle of a pandemic that are just trying to keep their heads afloat without any sort of carrot at the end, just saying, hey, let's think of a goal. Let's make that our goal this year. That was one of the most difficult and dumbest decisions I've ever made. But we came up with something really cool. So I guess it worked out in spite of that being what we did. So what did it look like in year one? Well, our one main thing we asked of people was bring in one outside person to teach just one part of one lesson in any of your classes. Don't care what it is. The only stipulations are related to your field of study. We'd rather have them in person because we know what happens when people get in the building. They want to be involved. They see what you're doing. They get excited. Virtual worked out great for a lot of things. Getting people excited is not one of them. And then get their name and contact info to our business and community liaison afterward. Otherwise, how do we keep that connection going? So those were the only stipulations we had. And we asked every teacher to do just one for the entire year. Everybody knows we have some of those, what's the word for it? Yeah, you've got your learning leaders, you've got your innovators in your building, and then you've got your pain in the ass, okay? You've got people that are going to complain and just not do what you need them to do every single time. And so we thought, okay, we're lucky. We don't have a lot of them in our school. We still have a couple, though. And so we said, okay, as administrators and a couple of the teacher leaders were like, all right, who's going to be our hardest one to get this to happen? And so we focused that energy on them. We focused that energy on them and brought them into the planning part. And I think I've talked to other groups that we've worked with before, and any advice I've ever given is find your biggest pain in the ass and make them part of your team. Get them involved. They get that buy-in. There's no better thing for that part of it. So we got them to get involved. So what did that look like? Within the first 2 months, We started to have some politicians rolling through the building. We had our city mayor, county mayor, state senators, state representatives, county commissioners coming in on the political end. So that was really, really cool to get them in the building the first 2 months of school. After that, we started to also see them professionals in technology. Being a STEM academy, they want to be a part of it. Being a STEM academy that has a really kind of hyper focus on computer science, they really wanted to be involved. Being a school that sends kids with an average ACT score around 27, they really want to get involved because they want to hire these people. We know, make it something they want. So we got a lot of professionals in technology in. You can see the University of Tennessee from our balcony. I mean, we're walking distance to it. So we had a ton of professors that were coming over to speak. We had scientists from Oak Ridge National Laboratory that spoke with us, business owners, sales reps, and then some of those that were virtual, people from NASA, from SpaceX, some of the connections that we had, doctors and lawyers. What I will tell you about the NASA, the SpaceX, and some of those things, those came as former students of some of our teachers that have been in other states and other places. Ask your teachers to reach out. This specifically, I guess, works more so in high school. Ask them to reach out to their former students. You will be amazed at what those kids are doing and the connections you can get within your building. So here's a couple of pictures from one of our really, really cool events that we did as we saw this kind of take off. Up on the screen, this is our commons area. This was something we started this year, and you'll notice that we were, you can tell where we were as far as the pandemic goes with everybody being masked here except our speakers. This was a Saturday morning at, I think, 11 a.m. We just had a free event that we were saying, okay, we've noticed that people want to be in the building. We want to get these outside people in. Let's just have one of our professors from UT speak about something. Just told them whatever you want, something that could be for all ages, and asked them to come and talk to us. And we thought we might get around 50 or so kids. And we told them to invite their parents. And we set up about probably 60 seats in the front part of the school. And then people started to show up. And people started to show up and show up and show up. We filled up all of our parking lot. And you'll notice we didn't have any of the chairs here in the back. None of this was set up. This was all stuff that the kids who were part of it went downstairs, other parts of the building, started bringing chairs in, moving furniture out, bringing stuff in so more people could be involved. We had almost 250 people in that room to watch one of our professors speak. This professor that spoke was speaking about, if I remember right, I think it was the death of stars. And so this is an astrophysicist from the University of Tennessee, Dr. Tony Mezzacappa, who is a huge supporter of our school, but just wanted to come and speak to it. The kid up there on the side is my oldest, who introduced Dr. Mezzacappa that day, and Dr. Mezzacappa just fell in love and took my son on as kind of a mentor to him, letting him see everything that UT has to offer to some really cool stuff. So again, it was just by asking him. Now, I will also tell you and warn you, if you ever tell your kid, hey, he's never spoken in front of anybody, he really wanted to introduce Dr. Mezzacappa, so that'd be about 40, 50 people, Ethan, it'll be fine. And he's sitting there in the front row as people start coming in, bring more chairs in, and I'm just looking at him, just the fear, just face is white. And I said, you've got it written down, what you were going to say. You're going to be all right. But getting an 8-year-old to read some very intense words and some of the history of what Dr. Mezzacappa has studied, I was scared to death, like, oh, God, he's going to get up there and just shut down. Did a wonderful job and has now wanted to always speak in front of groups because he liked the applause and the fanfare. I said, I promise you, you do a great job of it. But later in life, they aren't always happy when you're speaking in front of these large groups. I can definitely attest to that. So, again, that was just asking somebody to come. And this is just through asking somebody to say and asking your teachers, hey, have somebody come speak in your room. Dr. Mezzacappa in the physics department came and spoke, I think it was every other week for the entire year, taught in our physics classrooms. So Dr. Mezzacappa, along with different TAs and different teaching assistants through the university, came and taught in our astronomy and physics classes one lecture a week, or I think it was every other week, so 2 to 3 a month for that. And it was absolutely awesome. And it was, again, just by asking. We didn't pay him anything. We didn't do anything with it. We just said, you want to come in and talk to a group of kids about stars? And this is what we came up with. So, again, just asking people. So what did we find out? When they got in the building, they wanted to be there and they want to come back. They gave us better insight to what we should be teaching students. That was the biggest key. They told us, when we asked them, and I guess it really depends on the business. It depends on the subject, because we all know we've got certain standards that we have to teach. But guess what? When you ask them what we should teach, the things they come up with all fit into those boxes. They all fit into those standards, so it worked out great. It increased engagement. Nobody wants to sit and hear their teacher talk for an hour and a half. Let's say something about like the death of stars. I mean, some of our kids do, like my kid would. They're just kind of that super nerd, but not everybody wants to. But when you have somebody who this is what their passion, what their life's work is in, it is really, really engaging. And so that increased that engagement. We now have new partners through it. And then because of that, and they would talk about the work they did, others called us to ask if they could come into the school to speak. So you stop asking people, they start asking you. And again, this all stemmed from, no pun intended there, this all stemmed from us just telling our teachers, hey, have somebody come in and try to teach a lesson once. So we listened, and that whole thing about having a goal for the next 10 years and creating that, this added probably in 6 months more information than we had collected in 2 years of these planning stages. We changed what we're doing moving forward because of those people in our building, because of the talks with our community, because of the talks with our mayor, our president of the Chamber of Commerce, all these people that have such a different perspective. We changed what we're doing and what is going to be, what our kids are going to get over the next 10 years. So we created something that we've been talking about for years, these pathways that we were looking at rolling out for next year's freshmen. We literally changed all 4 of them that we had in place. All the things that we were going to do, we changed every single one of them, their names, in both the marketing of them, but also in what we're studying, what we're focusing on. You're going to see as we get to new courses, we changed courses being offered over the next 10 years. We have changed a ton just by having them in the building and talking to them. So here's where we're going. And what are these pathways? So these are going to be a narrowed area of focus for our students. These pathways are geared toward what we do in the classroom as well as the growth in our community. There's one in particular that we added specifically because in every facet, in every group we talked to, they talked about the growth in that part of our community in East Tennessee. We focused on recruiting the students that are attracted to our school for these related fields. We had to come to grips with we don't have to be the catch-all and take every kid no matter what. We were created to focus on STEM. We were created to focus on a niche. And so we talked about that. Like we're a very inclusive school. If you've ever been around our kids, it's a very inclusive environment. And that's not going to change, but we want to make sure that our kids are coming academically for the right reasons. A kid coming to us saying that I want to be an artist and a musician, that's absolutely fine. How do you view that through the STEM lens? Those are those things that we're talking to kids about. And again, it's not that we select our kids, we can't, but we are going to target who we market what we do to. And a lot of that came from these conversations with both kids, teachers, and community partners. And so a renewed focus on the content while embracing individualism of our student needs and interest. So our 4 pathways that we are focusing on. And not only did we work with our community partners to come up with what we're doing, but they helped us with the names. So you'll see 4 of them up here. We've got the physics, mechanics, and engineering. We have a design thinking pathway, the advanced inquiry and research, and the computational science and cybersecurity. And so these are 4 pathways that every student will choose one of when they are leaving after their freshman year. All that these are, for those of you that are trying to figure out graduation requirements, all those things, these are just their elective area of focus. These are just a different name for that. The names, again, were thought of with our community partners. So we sat down with Mike Odom, who's our president of our Chamber of Commerce, our county mayor, Glenn Jacobs, and then a few other business partners and said, okay, here's what we're doing. Help us figure out what this looks like. What does the community need with it? And so this is kind of what we came up with here. You'll notice the one, computational science, we're talking about not only computer science, but other types of things that come along with it as well. And obviously cybersecurity is part of that. But where's one of the biggest areas for growth in our community? In cybersecurity. We needed it in the name. And so we threw it in there. The advanced inquiry and research. What do we have, 20 miles away from us? The Oak Ridge National Laboratory. What do we need to build on our partnership with? Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So these are the kids that are looking in that field. We are looking at trying to market in that area. Design thinking. That is what our school is based on. We base everything off of it. Everything we do, we walk through that process. So we need to have a pathway for those kids that also can work through that might not be in computer science. They might not be in, like I think of like an AP chemistry, going to be a biochemist. This isn't their field, but they're looking through the STEM lens. And then this last one, the physics, mechanics, and engineering. This has been one of our biggest areas for growth in Knoxville area. But on top of that, this is an area that we knew we needed to grow in as a school. So here are some of the new courses that we're growing with. We're going to be growing an engineering pathway. So we decided to throw it out there. Our master schedule, the way we operate and the way I've done it since we got there was, here are some classes. If enough kids sign up, we're going to teach it. The schedule should be made for the kids. We threw engineering up there, just intro to engineering, and had like 50-some kids sign up right away. And we're like, okay, now we got to reel that back. We can only have 2 classes. We don't have enough teachers. But awesome, we threw that out there. In talking to community partners around East Tennessee and the engineering fields and in computer science, German is a language that we do not have enough people speaking fluently in. And we had started last year with a distinguished professional teaching German. We now, next year, probably to the chagrin of the other school, have that teacher teaching full-time with us next year as a German teacher, building onto that program as we needed to expand. Excuse me. The expansion of coding and cybersecurity courses. That was a huge thing for us. So what did we do? And anybody in here a high school person? Y'all know what's coming in 24, 25 with that freshman class? I know you all know, but a lot of people I may not be fully aware yet. Every student in a high school in Tennessee will have to take and pass a computer science class starting with the freshman of 24, 25. This is something we started my first year back as the head principal, that every freshman, when they come to the school, takes computer science foundations their freshman year, along with STEM 1. And that has expanded and exploded, really, the computer science program at our school. We're now up to 3 and could easily employ 5 full-time computer science teachers. No other CTE class, just computer science. Just computer science because of that. So really exciting on there. A full breadth of pre-AP offerings for every student so that we can dig deeper, as everybody had told us we needed to do in our subjects. We created a new course in mathematical modeling. This is going to be looking at the data science, looking at mathematical modeling and problem solving their senior year, and then expanding into our AP offerings into the social science, English, and the arts. So this has increased not only that rigor, but that deep dive that we know we get with some of that College Board material. The next thing that people have told us that students needed, and this came from the students, which I thought was the most awesome thing when we're asking questions, was they wanted something in their hand. They want something tangible other than a diploma when they left. So beginning with next year's freshmen, and they're going to find this out next Saturday, and so it may scare some of them off, we have some pretty steep requirements for them by the time they graduate high school of what we expect for them to complete based on the input from our community partners. So from that, a plan as well as a tangible thing for each student is what they asked for. Community partners, parents, students all did. So based on what they said was important, we have a portfolio that they will be building over 4 years that focuses on comprehensive learning, experiential learning, ownership of learning, self-reflection, community service, and then research and presentation. And so you'll see up there, and I'll send this out I don't know how, do we have a way to send that out? Does anybody from the network in here? We'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way to get this out. But there's a lot of info in here we'd love to be able to share with you guys. And please let us make the mistakes and then copy it and make it better. That's the whole point of what we do as a school. Please do that. But we have a lot of really cool things that are going to be happening in those. So this is something we then reached out to with our business partners. We gave some of these same pieces of this presentation to them. We asked, okay, so how can you help? And these are people we talked to that had come into the building or just had a natural connection to our school. So we said, how can you help? Okay, through time and talent is what we look at. We're not asking them for money. We know what comes later, right? They're gonna bring the money. But time and talent, we need community and business partners. We need job shadowing and internship opportunities. Every student at our school in their senior year or junior year, depending on their pathway, will have some sort of, and are required to have some sort of job shadowing and internship opportunity. We need visits to businesses. We started that piece of it in year 1. Some of these great ideas you can jump on right away. I'm a big advocate for taking your time and making it work, but when we have businesses that want our kids in them after coming into our building, we found a way to send them out. We tasked our senior principal, and he really dug deep into this, did an incredible job with it, of finding out what every single senior was interested in doing when they graduated high school and trying to pair them up with a community and business partner in 1 year. He did an incredible job of that, finding so many opportunities for them between getting kids out to hospitals, getting kids into the veterinary school, having computer scientists come into the building, all of this stuff on top of that. So these kids all have a connection, whether it's an email, a phone number, of somebody they can call when they graduate that they can reach out to in the business community. And then we ask them to guest teach and lecture in a class. After that, after they've come in, they've done this already or they've talked a little bit, we hand it over to our business and community liaison. I know that not every school has one of those. We didn't either when I came. We created it. We knew that needed to be a focus, and we knew that was going to be important. So we found a way to fund it. We have a position, it was one of our front office positions that we took and supplemented on top of. And to be able to do that, to be able to have that person. You gave up something else for something you thought was important, and we heard that need from the community. So, we'll go back. That'll be the last thing. But one of the other things I'm really excited to point out, all those pathways that we had up here, and I'd go back to show you those, but they will not just be a pathway for students. One of those things that we, like I said, it comes down to getting our kids fun and getting the things they need. Each one of those pathways will have a sponsor from an outside organization. And so we've got some people, we can't roll it out and announce some of it yet, but some very big companies, some very large partners that are going to be kind of the name of that. And we're not asking them for money when it comes to that. We're asking them for talent and time. We're asking them to sit down with us to help plan. We're asking them to reflect with us on what we did. We're asking them to come speak to our students about these things. But this is all that we've asked of them. And guess what happened when we asked them? Not only do they say yes, but they want to say, when you're talking about a plan, like, you know what, we can buy that. We can provide that. Cisco is one of those big ones. Cisco Systems, you guys know, if you're in computer science world at all, we had a parent in our school who's had a couple of kids come through. We were talking to him, bouncing ideas off his head. In no way were we asking for anything. We were literally just talking with him. I think we were at breakfast maybe even, and he said, you know what, why don't we provide that for you guys? We've got a grant that has a ton of these things in them. Well, that has turned into 4 years in a row now, providing, I think it's 250 or 300 microbits to every class that comes through to use in computer science that we don't pay a dime for. And that was just sitting down and talking to them about what we were planning. So again, big stuff here, all through just talking to people. So I wanted to leave time here, and I think we're about perfect on that, for some questions and seeing if I can answer any questions for you guys about how we did it, or maybe steal ideas from you on things you guys are doing out there in this work. So does anybody have any questions? We'll just sit in silence for 15 minutes. That's fine. I'm just kidding. What's that? To come to see us? Not at all. No, we're open door. Come and see us anytime. Just email me, email Tim, and our teachers have the expectation that they know people are going to be in their rooms. People are going to be walking through, whether it's teams of teachers, teams of kids, whatever it is. We give school tours to our students all the time, and so they're used to kids walking through. They're also used to businesses and people coming in. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. In fact, it was so good. And if you guys can go see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. If my children were still in high school, I would pack up and move. East Tennessee was that great.
Oh, I appreciate that.
What really stood out to me was when we toured the schools, the students led the tour, and that we didn't really speak to a lot. They gave us everything we needed to know. And what I really, really, really appreciate, and I see that you really do implement that in your presentation as well, was that there were whiteboards around the school, and it asked, what would you like to see taught next year? And so the kids did have a voice.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously it did matter because I know I sing German.
Yeah.
And that was in, I think, August or September.
Yep. And that's where these things come from. Again, we're not sitting around as a bunch of geniuses coming up with what kids need in education. Just ask them. So we purchased, I think, like 8 or 10 of these rolling small whiteboards. Just put them all over campus. We had a question about once a month we'd put on there every couple of weeks and put it out there. Say, okay, what did you think of this? Or like when we did the lecture series, we said, what do you want the next one to be on? and just having kids put that on there. And then we reach out to somebody and say, hey, could you come talk about it? Or what classes do we not offer that you would like to see? There are some on there. Obviously, you're going to get some ridiculous answers and some really, really interesting things that kids write. But you're also going to get things like the German part there. We had a part-time, 2-class German distinguished professional, and they really liked that one to see a full breadth of it offered. When we hear it from them and we hear it from the community, that's why we now have a full-time German teacher and a full-time German program. So thank you for that. I really appreciate hearing that. That's really cool.
Your liaison.
Yeah.
I know you say the teachers make these connections as your goals, have those guests come in and then share that information to the liaison. What is the goal of the liaison with the follow-up after that? Do they just call and say, hey, thanks for coming?
It could be many things. If the person came in and it was like an utter failure, then yes, it will just be, thanks for coming in. We really appreciate it. Lose our number. But no, because that happens. Like, you're going to have some people that come in and talk. You're like, wow, that was really boring and did nothing for us. But that's what innovation is. That's when you try to do something new. But his job and what I pay him to do is to foster relationships. So if we see something's going to be valuable for our kids, his job is to go out and find that person, go visit them, sit down with them, foster that into something bigger, more meaningful, to the tune of whatever our kids are needing, and trying to get them to help pay for it and give us that instruction. Again, if you're looking for a way to do it, if you've got some sort of grant thing, I literally said, okay, here is a supplement, and here's what it's going to be. I had it into our magnet budget. I said, I need for you to do this. If you're going to have this same thing next year, because it was a substantial one, I need you to raise that much money in year one. So just pay for yourself. If you can do that, we're going to be okay. Year 2, I said pay twice for it. Well, in year 1, he paid 10 times for it. In year 2, he paid 10 times for it again. So that is what you do. You give that goal, you give them that incentive, but also you find the person with the passion and those connections. And I would say, don't make it a teacher. I know we're coming from the education field, but we all worked in education. So where are our connections? They're in education. Find that person from the outside to do that job. Sure.
I noticed that a lot of your staff seemed like they were very content working at your school.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it was a show.
Yeah, no.
It seemed truly genuine.
Yeah.
And I want to know, what are you doing to foster teacher retention?
Hire the right person and get the hell out of their way. Don't tell them how to do their job. I'm not an expert in art. I'm not going to tell you how to do art. Just teach art. If you're not doing it well and not teaching well, I'm going to hear about it. We're going to fix it. But I know how to run a school. I don't know how to teach English. So I'm not going to tell you how to teach English. That means I have to hire the right person for it. And a funny story about that, we hired somebody last year in our English department. We had we only had 5 English teachers. We had 3 of them leave last year. One of them to the network. Misty Brown, that you've seen walking around the pink hair, was one of our English teachers. And so all of our teachers that have left in the history of our school have only left for promotions. We haven't had any lateral moves, which is really interesting. And it goes along with what you're saying. But we had these 3 people leave. We had somebody come from Bearden Middle. I don't know what, I shouldn't say their name. Another school in the county that had come, and she had some good experiences there. Had a heck of a career. They're doing an awesome job. But again, I said the same thing when I hired her. Like, I'm literally going to hire you, and we're going to get out of your way. Like, I do not know how to teach English, and I am not going to learn how to teach English. I don't want to. That's not what I do. I don't have an interest in it. I know how necessary it is. And so day 3, I brought in all the new teachers at one at a time, just saying, how's this week going for you? That week before the kids come back. And she said, man, I was sitting there waiting those first 2 days, like, when is he going to talk about what we're teaching this year, what we're going to teach? Everything's been about, goal setting, and we're talking about culture and all of these things. And I said, you remember what I said in the interview, right? She said, yeah. And that's why I said, oh yeah, he really meant it. He wasn't going to tell me, here's your curriculum, this is what you teach. No, I expect you to plan it. I expect you to do it, and I expect you to do it at a really, really high level. And that's all it takes. So you just get out of their way. Let them do the job. But if you don't hire the right person, it's really, really hard to do that. We make those mistakes too. We had one leave this past year, mid-year. Education wasn't for her. Math was for her. Education wasn't. We do education.
One quick plug and one question.
Yeah.
The quick plug is that of the other things from Discovery Center in Murfreesboro, we founded the Tennessee STEAM Festival, which is scheduled for October 11th to 23rd. 10 days. It happens where you are. You make it happen. It's just a way to celebrate science, technology, engineering, art, and math in your area. I was just thinking about it now because I wasn't going to plug it, but I think it's a really easy way to start to connect with a community partner for a
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so there's information, and you can go to pnc.org, lots of information there. And again, we don't get money, we don't give money, you can really drive it if we advertise it.
Yeah.
But my question to you was, could you talk a little bit more about how you engage parents and families?
Yeah.
I think parent engagement is really important.
Yeah, two things that I think are really important with that is you got to ask them for their advice, and you need to listen to them. I mean, and if they don't, they're going to know you're not genuine. And be upfront with them, show your vulnerabilities to them, and let them know that what they're saying is important. And hear what they say, and actually listen and make a change if it's the change that, even if it feels hard and it's something that you feel invested in that you personally did. It's not about us; it's about those kids. And so let's listen to what they have to say. It's one of those all the voices, one data point that we need to take into consideration. Yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
With your teachers and you guys being a school of excellence, how do you address the work balance line with your teachers? Because it's really easy for
Mhm.
teachers to
Oh yeah,
let their jobs consume them.
that's a great point. Yeah, sure. So she was asking, how do you balance to get that work balance thing for teachers to make sure? Because when you are a school that is expecting excellence and you're expecting those things, that is not doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be there all the time doing it. And we try to tell them that as well. And so if we've got a few people that work later in the day, they prefer not to work morning, and I'll ask them to keep an eye out. If you see a teacher that is, if I've got something going after school, keep an eye out. If you see that teacher's car in the parking lot for a long time, let me know. We'll pull them in, sit them down, talk to them about it, and say, what are you doing that you can't get done before, and what can I do to make it easier for you? But the other part of it is we have like a no email after 7 p.m. to a whole staff. And that's our whole administrative staff. Don't let any of them send an email after 7 because our people are pleasers. And if they get that email, they're going to want to do it right away. And so you just don't do it. And so there's nothing that can't wait till the next day.
That's what I was assuming, that the teachers that work for you are happy to put in like numerous extra hours.
Yep. And honestly, we talk about in the interview too. We're a school of 600 kids. We're not big. We're not going to have a lot. We don't have a ton of discipline issues. We don't have kids that are constantly acting out. But what you give up for that is you might have a lot of preps because you have an idea of something you want to teach and you're going to have a unique offering. So there are difficulties in that. But we try to balance that out with them and say, hey, I know that. But if we see them burn out, cover their classes for a half a day. It's really not that hard. Get one of their peers to pick it up. Go cover it yourself as an administrator. Let them take the day, half a day off. Tell them to go get a cup of coffee, sit down, and relax, or whatever it is. But just pay attention to them, develop a relationship, and be able to have that communication all the time. Yeah.
Share anything else that you think is most valuable or interesting from what you learned when you talked to all these people? So you shared a couple things, but what else was particularly interesting or surprising when you heard from them?
I guess I was surprised at how much they wanted to be in the building in front of kids and being able to teach and talk about it. I was more surprised at that when I talked to the business community partners than anything. I was also surprised at how welcoming they were when it came to like political officials to just sitting down and having a conversation, just being like, and really listening. And maybe I got lucky, but like when I sent a message to our county mayor and said, hey, we had worked together on other things in the past. I knew him, but it didn't, nothing. And I just said, hey, I want to sit down and tell you about what our plans are. If you're going to be the mayor for the next 4 years, you should probably know about what we're planning on doing. And so we sat down and talked, and I think we had it booked for a half hour. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours about these things. And at the end of it, he's the one that said, hey, I need to have you sit down with Mike Odom, who's our president of the chamber. I would have never thought that would have been it. And he then goes out of his way to organize that meeting. So for me, it was more show them the value of what you're doing, and they're going to want to be a part of it and jump onto it and create those conversations. Yeah. But yeah, I was shocked at how many of them wanted to just come in and talk to kids. We had no problem getting anyone to do it. And here's what I'll say. If you're going to challenge your staff, hold them accountable on it too. So the only thing I'm asking at the end of year after we talk about evaluations and all that is the one thing I ask is that you had somebody come in. Who was it? How did that work for you? And you have to make sure you push that. You talk about it. Every Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, I send out an email with what the week is going to look like. It's just a staff update. And on the bottom of it every time was talking about who was that person, who did you bring in, and if you need help finding that person, let us help. And so it's constantly keeping it at the front of their mind and constantly talking about it made that happen. Yeah.
With your school's focus being like on computers, you mentioned AP classes
Yeah.
and the arts. How are you
Sure. A big part of it is, honestly, when we talk about, we have a big push toward computer science. We've really pushed that. Not everything about computer science, the more you dig into it, is about computers. It's digging deep into things. It's understanding those kind of things, that deep dive, that computational look. And so the arts offer that as well, that creative side. There is nothing, here's just some insight. The reason we got rid of web design this year as a school and offering that program next year, we won't have any courses in it, is because, quite frankly, that's a relatively easy thing to get done now. Okay, that's a relatively easy thing to get automated. The creative part is what we need. We need people being able to think of what the new technology is. What is that new thing 10 years from now? And you foster that in art. You foster that, especially to me, in the visual arts and into that deep thinking into it. So we've expanded what that looks like while we're expanding computer science. That's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. In the rural areas? Yeah. And we talked to a school a couple of months ago about that. It's identifying those business partners, even if you have to travel for it, and talking them and showing them that value. But you've got to start and shoot big. If you've got a big company that employs a lot of your families, I grew up in rural Ohio, small area where most of the town worked for one factory. And so if I'm the principal of that high school, I'm finding out what that factory needs, not only the workers, but what do they need at the upper levels, so those kind of things, so I can create those workers down the road. So showing them your value, their value to you, we already know what it is, but for your value to them is what you have to do. So shoot big and find that person and talk to them about it. And again, ask your kids where their parents work. You guys ask your kids if you can figure out where their parents work and find a way to do it delicately, ask them where they work. There are so many incredible connections in your student body to be able to find those business partnerships. We send out a survey, it's voluntary, and are blown away by the people we find in our buildings all the time.
I would definitely kind of reword on that because we just had a family who owns we're a local coffee shop in
Yeah.
the community, but came in and did a coffee and conversation where we invited parents and their children go there and they were able to share their children's experiences with the community partners they have that we might never see.
Yep.
But this coffee and community type conversation, we had all sorts of people come in and just ask about the program and kind of look by and they didn't even know a magnet existed in our neighborhood.
Yep. And that's why when I was putting this together, talking about the community partners, we talked about students, teachers, and all those people, because all of them are a part of those business partnerships, because all of the big sponsors that we have upcoming for these pathways, almost all of them are either somebody that had a kid at our school, whether it was in the past, they do currently, or somebody they know did. That is, there's always some sort of connection within 2 or 3 kind of steps to find that person. I think I am over my time. Guys, my contact's up here, my cell, my office phone, my email. Please reach out. We are more than willing to talk about what we do, show you what we do, and give any advice we can, including coming out and seeing what you guys do and stealing your ideas. So thank you guys very much.